The Watcher in the Woods. Deep in the heart of the forest there lies a cabin that has been abandoned for decades. The cabin is said to be cursed, and anyone who dares to enter is never seen or heard from again. The locals call it the Watcher in the Woods, and they say that the cabin is guarded by an ancient entity that has been there for centuries. One summer, a group of friends decided to take a camping trip to the cabin. Despite the warnings of the locals, they thought it would be a fun adventure to go there. But they were wrong. As soon as they entered the cabin, they were overcome by a feeling of dread. They felt as if they were being watched by something sinister. The friends shrugged it off as nerves and decided to settle in for the night. But as soon as they went to sleep, strange things began to happen. They heard whispering and scratching noises from the walls. They saw shadows moving in the corner of the room. They felt cold breaths on the back of their necks. The friends were terrified, but they didn't want to appear weak in front of each other, so they tried to ignore the strange occurrences. However, as the night went on, the events became more and more intense. They could feel the presence of something evil in the cabin, and it was getting closer and closer to them. In the morning, the friends woke up to find that one of their group was missing. They searched the cabin and the surrounding woods, but there was no sign of their missing friend. They assumed that he had left the cabin during the night, but deep down they knew that something terrible had happened. The friends returned home, but they were forever changed by the events that occurred in the cabin. They could never explain what happened that night, but they knew that the cabin was guarded by an ancient and malevolent entity. They also knew that the entity was still watching them, and it was only a matter of time before it claimed its next victim. To this day, the cabin remains abandoned, and the locals still warn against entering. But if you are brave enough to ignore the warnings, be prepared to face the Watcher in the Woods. The Empty Road. It was a dark and stormy night, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease as I made my way down the deserted road. The only light came from the occasional flash of lightning, illuminating the twisted trees that loomed over me. As I walked, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I kept turning around, but there was never anyone there, just the empty road and the howling wind. But then I saw it, a figure standing at the side of the road. It was tall and thin, with long, spindly arms and a cloak that seemed to be made of shadows. Its face was hidden in the darkness, but I could feel its eyes on me, cold and malevolent. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't move. I was rooted to the spot, frozen in terror as the figure started to move towards me. It was getting closer and closer, and I could feel its breath on my face. I closed my eyes and prepared for the worst, but then I opened them again. The figure was gone. There was no sign of it anywhere. I was alone once more. I don't know what that thing was, But I do know one thing for sure. I never want to see it again. The house at number 666. It was a quiet suburban neighborhood, and all the houses looked the same. The only thing that distinguished one from another was the number on the mailbox. But there was one house that stood out from the rest. The house at number 666. No one had lived there for as long as anyone could remember. The windows were boarded up, as same as the doors. But the strange thing was, the house always seemed to be clean. The windows sparkled in the sunlight and the weeds were neatly trimmed. People in the neighborhood whispered about the house, wondering who could possibly be taking care of it. Some said it was haunted, others said it was cursed, but no one dared to find out for sure. That was until one night, when a group of teenagers decided to explore the house. They pried open the door and made their way inside. What they found was beyond their wildest nightmares. The house was empty, except for a single room in the basement. In that room was a figure sitting in a rocking chair. The figure was old and wrinkled, with a face that seemed to be made of wax. It was staring at them with eyes that glowed red in the darkness. The teenagers tried to run, but the figure was too fast. It caught them one by one and dragged them into the darkness. No one ever saw or heard from them again. The house at number 666 still stands to this day, and some say that the figure is still down in the basement, waiting for its next victims. But no one dares to find out for sure. And if ever heard strange noises coming from that house, don't go to investigate. Just remember, some things are better left unknown.